I've really, really appreciated having you on the show today. And you're clearly a brilliant entrepreneur, and you've been very successful. There was one specific thing I read on your blog that I would love for you to touch on for just a minute or two, and it was your concept of the joy, skill, and need framework. Because I think that's something that all of us really struggle with, and I really liked that framework.
Yeah, so there's a lot of similar frameworks about things like fulfillment. And I'm staying away from the word happy because that's a different thing. But really, what this came from is burning out. So at Smart Bear, I burned out, and um, I didn't even really know it until after I sold it, and then it was clear how unhappy I was. Um, I didn't want that to happen again at WP Engine. So about 4 years in at WP Engine, really growing fast as I was saying, and there was like a 4 month period where there was a suggestion of like, should I still be the CEO or should I be the CTO, stay in my area of happiness and skill in product and engineering, or do you really want to be the CEO of a fast scaling larger company? And so I decided, again, fast forwarding 4 months, no, I don't want to be the CEO of that. But how do you come up with that decision, especially as the founder? I mean, being the CEO is so, it's like one of the whole reasons to do the company in the first place is so you can be that, have that control, have that position, be able to say that to other people and take credit when the company does well. Like that's part of why you're doing it. So it's a really big decision and a really hard one. So this framework is one I made, which is what I used to make that decision. And it was so effective that afterwards, and then during the transition, I really wanted to explain to everyone at the company why I did this because I was afraid people would think this is just an excuse. I'm getting pushed out. This is one foot out the door for me. I was afraid people would think that. This is now over 10 years ago, and I'm still at the company, so it's pretty clear that that was not doing it. But at the time, right? That's a good fear. So I really wanted to explain myself um, to show folks. And so after that, people themselves used it. And so really, I think this is something anyone can use to sort of seek this. And you'll see echoes of things like Ikigai and other things in it. It's not like I made the whole, it's not like this, you can't see this kind of thing elsewhere because kind of all paths maybe lead to more or less the same place. But the particular one I made was that there's these circles of joy, things you love, meaning like when you do it all day, you're not even tired. You want to continue doing it. You forget to eat and pee while you're doing it, right? That kind of joy. Skill just means you're good at it. Even you think you're pretty good at it. Even you think I don't have imposter syndrome with this. I'm actually good at this. Like, right? That's what I mean by skill. Another tip off is other people um, say, "Oh my gosh, you're a natural at that." Like, whether they're right or not. Maybe you worked really hard. Maybe they're wrong. But anyway, they say that, so that must mean you have some kind of skill. And then finally, what does the company need done? What does the company need to have done? It's critical to do this, or else our strategy fails, or this is the next part of our plan, or whatever. And so, the reason, if you imagine a Venn diagram of these, the reason that's useful is because what I found is if you have two of the three, it forms a specific trap that I had fallen into, where I thought things were good, but they weren't. This is why this particular thing is useful. So, for example, if you have the joy and the skill, but the company doesn't need it done, then this is what a lot of indie hackers do every day. Indie hackers are like, I'm good at hacking up software. It's fun. So that's what I do. But what does the company need? The company needs you to work on sales and marketing. But you don't like it, you don't know how to do it, you don't have any money to spend, so you don't. And so you have a project that makes 1K MRR for 3 years while you call yourself an entrepreneur. But really, you have a side project, and just a couple people just happen to buy it, which is not a company. And that's because you're in that joy and skill area, but that's not what the company needs you to do. It's a very common trap. Plus, you're the founder. Who's going to tell you not to? And it's your side project. So again, who's going to tell you not to? So it's easy to stay in that trap because it feels good because it's something you like and you're good at. So it's easy to stay there. The second trap, right, is that you have the joy and the company needs it done, but you're not good at it. So an example I like to use here is, which again, a lot of engineers do, I did it, is you say, okay, the company needs marketing. Great. I'm going to try AdWords. I've never done AdWords before. I don't know anything about it. I don't know how much to spend. And so I don't even know how to hire a consultant or someone to run it for me, because I don't know how to interview them because I don't understand it. So I am going to learn AdWords for the next 3 months. I'm going to do it. I'm going to become an expert in AdWords. Then I'll decide what to do. Like maybe I'll just run it, or I could then hire someone else to run it because I'll know how to manage them now that I'm the expert. And so for the next 3 months, you work on AdWords. That sounds fun. It's fun to learn something new. And the company does need advertising, so that's good. But of course, you're not good at it. But as a founder, you think you're good at absolutely everything and always make the best decisions. It's false. But again, who's going to tell you otherwise? So what happens is you do AdWords for 3 months and you suck because you don't become expert in AdWords in 3 months. Plus, you had to run everything else in the company. That's not how that works. So you're not very good at it. You're not making good decisions. You still don't know how to hire someone who's good at AdWords. So in other words, you just lost 3 months of time. And the company needed marketing, let's not forget. That's what the company needed. So you hurt the company because you wanted to do it. So that's the joy and skill, but not, or joy and need, but not skill trap. The final one is the burnout one. That's the one where you have the company needs it done and you have the skill to do it, but you don't love it. And so this is the thing where, but it needs done and I can do it. And you're right. That's why it's an easy trap to be in. It needs to be done. And a lot of times you say things like, I don't want to push this on anyone else. I'll do it. This kind of martyrdom or servant leadership, some people like to call it. No, this is just you burning yourself out. Now, every day can't be filled with only the things you love. That's obviously also not true. But if the primary things you're doing are the primary responsibilities are things that you don't love, again, like maybe you have to, like, especially as the smaller the company is, the more you just have to do things. You don't have a choice. You don't have the resources. You don't have the money or the people or the time or whatever. So you kind of have to do it. So early on, you may have no choice but to be in that burnout phase. Okay, but just as long as you're recognizing it's bad, not something you want to claw out of in a couple of years, right? This is not a good, healthy place to remain, right? And certainly once you start getting at scale, like we were starting to be at this time, we were, let's say 80 people or something. Well, at 80 people, there is no like, oh, I have to do it. No one else could possibly, like, no, you can have an 81st person. Like it's just, that's just not true, right? And so that's the burnout. That's the burnout trap. So it is of course a idealistic thing to say you should always be in the middle, blah, 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 right? Of course. But on the other hand, if we don't write down what the vision statement is for yourself, if the ideal for yourself, then how do you get there? How do you build toward that? How do you change things so that you get there? So it's still worth saying what it is. So that's what I used. And again, like this really is for a founder, I think it's more extreme because you're the last stop for everything. So you kind of have to, like, if no one else does it, you have to.
Yeah.
And also it's hardest for anyone to tell you otherwise. So I do think it's extra hard as a founder, but this to me works really well for anybody, anywhere in the company to try to find a place they're healthy, you might say. And by the way, much more productive for the company, because what's better than everyone enjoying what they do and being good at it? And we need that. Like, obviously that's good for just selfishly good for the company, like, right? It's one of those rare cases where this is good for everyone involved. So if there's someone else at the company, for example, who's burning themselves out doing something that's needed, that's something as a leader you have to recognize and do something about. And then let's say you're hiring someone to replace that, not that that's the only way, but supposing, then you you want to hire someone where it's in that joy space too. So like when you're interviewing someone, it's not enough to ask about things that verify the skill. How do you know that they have this heart in it? A
Yeah.
lot of times you can tell just by how they talk about it, what they get excited about, what they sort of run down and won't stop talking about. But also, like, you shouldn't just wait for that to happen. Not every personality does that either, by the way. So you might want to be more intentional about how you're asking about that. Another kind of tip for how to hire that way in general, and also again, one of these traps, that, and also one of these traps is about you don't know how to do it. It's not your skill, and yet the company needs it done. Okay, like if you pause there though and say like, all right, it's fine for you to like complain about that, but what do? I can't hire for something I don't understand. So how do I break that logjam? So to answer that question, to like the practical question about that particular thing, as well as this question of how do you find the joy in someone else, couple of tips for that. One is when you're interviewing the person, and again, let's suppose it's not your skill area because it's the hardest version, you want to come away with the interview feeling like, oh my God, this person said so many things, has so many good ideas. Even if we don't hire them, we've got to do like half of these. I got pages of notes. I got to do this anyway. When you say that literally, that's a great sign that even though you're not the expert, like you're interested in seeing these particular ideas come to fruition here. You can see that they match your style, your culture, right? And yet this person generated them, so maybe they can do it. That's a good signal. And then one other tip I'll give for that is um, call their reference checks or do the reference checks, call their references. Now, of course, when they're going to, references they give will say nice things. So you don't ask, is this person good? They'll say yes. This is totally useless. Don't even ask. Here's what I ask in the reference check. I say, under what circumstances is this person a freaking unstoppable superstar? Like what culture of the company, what kinds of projects, what kinds of teams, who are the other people, or maybe they're a loner and the answer is no team, or like, is it a culture of empowerment or do they like to be told what to do so they know if I do this, I'll get a reward? Or they get, like what circumstances makes them thrive? And let them tell you. Of course, you did not tell them what your company's like. You're just getting them to generate that, right? And they'll know. They're like, oh my gosh, this person loves being on a team. They always make the whole team better. So they've got to be on a team of people who are, they'll just tell you. And then I ask the opposite. If you could construct a culture or a circumstance that where this person would be crushed and fail and weep and be upset and be terrible at their job, what would that look like? You're like, oh yeah, if you tell them what to do and always staring over their shoulder, they'll leave, or whatever, right? Like they can easily answer that question on both ends. You'll again never tell them what your company's like. You'll come away with this kind of, it doesn't have to be polls. It doesn't have to be polarized per se, but you'll get this kind of yes and no sort of a bucket of stuff. And of course, you'll have to use your judgment. But now you can be like, all right, the closer your company is to that positive end, you're like, okay, now the reference really has helped me know they might thrive here or vice versa. Um, and so also that really goes to the fact that so many people will thrive somewhere, but not necessarily with you. And that doesn't mean they're good or bad or you're good or bad. That's not, of course, what it means at all. It's just a puzzle. And does this puzzle piece fit or not? Or does the puzzle piece go somewhere else? The puzzle piece isn't good or bad, and the whole isn't good or bad. Just does it fit, right? And so it's a good way because for everyone, there's that positive one where they thrive like crazy. And for everyone, there's that way where they're crushed and they're awful, or multiple ways, really, right? And so just knowing what it is so you can find out if they're a fit, like it's such a nice, truthful way of saying, will this person fit without saying like, and that means they're bad or something, like it's not even a relevant word to use, right? So those are ways to hire well and to get around this thing of like, but I don't know, I don't have the skill yet to interview them on the skill basis. How do I still find great talent that's likely to succeed? So, yeah, you're taking a bet, obviously, but like, how
Yeah.
do I make that risk better? Those are very practical ways that I use to do that.